All right, thanks for staying with us. Achieving financial freedom is a goal for many people. It generally means having enough savings, investment, and cash on hand to afford the lifestyle you want for yourself and your family, and a growing nest egg that will allow you to retire or pursue the career you want without being driven by earning a certain amount each year. Unfortunately, too many people fail to achieve it. They are burdened with increasing debt, financial emergencies, this one is the tongue twister for me. Profligate spending and other issues that thwart them from reaching their goals. Then there are unexpected events such as a family emergency or pandemic that overturns plan and reveals holes in their safety nets that weren't visible before. Now, do you think it is possible to have a foolproof strategy that guarantees financial freedom? Please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So I'm going to bring in Ezeiel in a minute, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts. You think it's possible for you to have a foolproof strategy for financial freedom? Do you think so?
I think so. I think you can start somewhere. You can start planning, but things happen along the way, but just have a plan.
Jennifer, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with her. I think it's all about your planning and your strategy.
So do you have one in place?
Yeah, I do.
Really? So we're not on the same boat. I thought we were broke together, Jennifer. Jennifer just embarrassed me on National TV. So I was here thinking that we were broke together.
Honestly, I think right from when I was in primary school, I've always had respect for money. I've always been able to save. I remember then when I'm going to school in primary school, I mean, we didn't have so much. My mom would give me 10 naira, and then she would also give me my lunchbox. So the 10 naira basically is to buy juice or biscuits in case you see your other friends where you can buy yours. So basically what I do is I divide that 10 naira into two. I use 5 naira, buy 2 for 5 naira biscuits. So eat one in the afternoon, then take one home, and then probably use like maybe extra 1 naira from maybe yesterday or the previous day to buy sweets. Then that remaining 5 naira, I save it every day and I use it during the weekend.
How old were you?
Probably I was 7, 8.
Well, you know, you're 9. An Igbo girl.
Continue.
Let me bring you
continue.
But you know, sometimes I just wish, why didn't you come from that Igbo line?
They are like the Jews.
I tell you. Ezeiel Solesi is a prolific author, insightful speaker, and a serial entrepreneur. He is the co-founder of Naturegift Product Limited. I believe it's a soap making company, and he's also they make natural soaps from pawpaw. Yeah, they call it Nature Feel Papaya Soap. Co-founder of SMID Animation Studios Limited, one of the top 2 animation companies in Nigeria, and he's also the CEO of Limb Simple, an organization whose acronym means Life, Investment, Money, and Business Made Simple. The company has a mission to provide specified technical, inspirational, and motivational information that would enable everyone, everyday people, make deliberate improvements in their lives and businesses. His activities as a speaker and a facilitator spans over a variety of industry, and he's done this over a decade. Thank you so much for joining us. And he's not a stranger to ways. Thank you. We always make sure we bring him annually. Is that maybe December, end of the year, or January, so that he can so that he can set the pace. But thank you so much, Ezeiel, for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So this is an important topic. This is something that you do for a living. You are a strategist. You look at people, you go into their lives, and you're able to help them dissect something that is workable to their, you tailor it to their unique strength and everything, and eventually get them to that attaining that financial freedom. So first of all, what exactly I don't want to expose myself on national TV. But you see, are these strategies truly workable? Can they be adopted by anyone, and can it be implemented by anyone?
Yeah, strategy is simply a plan. That's really what forget all the big English.
All the big English.
A strategy is at the very basic level a plan. So the question is, are there plans to be financially free? And it
can work for anybody.
It works. And I think the most important thing is that there's a way to think about the plan. Because sometimes you can't just take someone else's plan and use it for yourself. It might not work. So for example, I have maybe 5, 6 things that I'll talk about. So the first thing I talk about when it comes to financial freedom is to understand be clear about what your goal is.
Clarity.
A lot of people say, I want plenty money, I want a lot of money. It doesn't really work that way, because your mind can figure out exactly what you want and doesn't know. I'll give you an instance. Has this ever happened to you? You decide you want to buy a car, maybe a Range Rover, Evoque, whatever, right? And you're so obsessed with it, and then you go out, and it looks like that's the only car you see.
Yeah.
Like the Association of Range Rover Owners decide that is in front of your
Don't
house.
be following your idea.
Exactly. So that's exactly what clarity means. So the first thing is to really decide, when I think about financial freedom, what exactly are my thoughts about it, right? So for example, financial freedom to somebody might be, I'd live somewhere, a low-skilled neighborhood, have a decent house, not have to worry about money, have a large house in the village. And not necessarily. For some other person, financial freedom is to be able to live on their own terms in Banana Island. Some other people, they want to have a house at the south of France. Some other people want. So financial freedom is not a fixed destination. It's really dependent on the person wants. So once you're clear about what you want, the other thing I always encourage is that, so I don't really set goals every year. I don't.
Why?
And it's because I set goals in 5 years, 5 years, 10 years. Because usually we always overestimate what we can achieve in a year, but we grossly underestimate what can happen in 5 years. And what happens is, if you set, so for example, I'm on the 3rd year of a 5-year goal now, right? And our business is being able to hit that. And I know exactly what we need to do. Sometimes it will happen as planned. Most times it won't happen as planned, but we're going that way, right? Now, the reason why that's important is that when you ask people to set a goal for 1 year, they think too short term. Financial freedom actually happens when people think long term. So if you think about, just think about Dangote, for example, right? Dangote's been in business for 30 plus years, right? It didn't really get into the Forbes list until, let's say, 2007, 2008. He'd been doing buying and selling for many years, then got into manufacturing, and then boom. And the reason why it's important to think that long term is because life doesn't add, life compounds. So if you think about, the easy question, if you've ever read The Compound Effect, is if somebody give you an opportunity to take either, $5 million in cash or a penny, not a dollar, a penny that has the capacity to double itself every day, which of them would you take? Assuming the penny would only double itself for 30 days. After 30 days, it will stop. So you have that magic penny or you have $5 million. Which of them would you take?
It's a trick question. Well, you know that the first thing anybody will take is the $5 million.
So that's
because we are not able to calculate how much the penny can multiply to.
Exactly. But if that penny doubles every day for 30 days, you have $10.3 million.
Sure.
So it's not a dollar.
I just lost my
penny.
Exactly.
If it doubles every day, you have $10.3 million. And that's sort of how life works, right? So if you do what you're supposed to do every day, your life would not be, the growth will not be incremental over a 5-year period. It will be monumental over the 5-year period. So what happens is that if you think about your goals in terms of 1 year, you think for 1 year, you hustle it out, it doesn't work out, then you change your strategy for the next year. And then you hustle it out and it doesn't work out and you change your strategy. So what would have happened is that in 5 years, you think you have 5 years experience, you have 1 year experience that you've essentially divided into 5 different ways. So the first thing is to determine where do I want to go. Second is to think a bit long term. If you can't go 10 years, maybe 5. You say, okay, where am I now? What am I going to be doing in 5 years? How much money do I want to have? What kind of business do I want to have? What kind of thing? And when you determine, okay, I want to live in Banana Island in 5 years, and I don't want to have to worry about money when I'm living in Banana Island. For example, there's nothing wrong with wanting to live in Banana Island. If you, like I said, like she said, there's nothing wrong in building a big house in your village if you can afford it. No, nothing wrong. Nobody should fight with you. It's not their money. It's your money. You build it. You want it to rot there. It's okay. That's your business, right? Financial planners can argue all they can, but if they are not paying if they are not the one paying the bill, you can do whatever you want to do, right? So the third thing is to then figure out what would then be my vehicle, right? So now I know what I want.
Long term. I'm
I
thinking
set
long
something
term.
long term. What would be my vehicle? How would I get there? See, because the vehicle I choose will determine how fast I get there, right? You will get there choosing any. I mean, you can go to Abuja anyhow. If you can walk. When Buhari won, one guy said
Want
to
trek
celebrate, he
Abuja.
trekked. It took him 19 days. He got there.
From Lagos.
From
Yes,
Lagos.
he trekked to
19 days, he got there. You can enter bus, maybe 10 hours, 11 hours, right? You can take a plane.
And take
55
private
minutes.
jets.
But if you think that people around you, you don't like to see their face, you can take a jet, right?
Perhaps.
I mean, and maybe in the future, you will use what some people call Egbe Express. You enter somewhere, disappear, appear. in Abuja. But the point is, the vehicle,
we know how to do this.
the vehicle, you have to choose what
Which
vehicle.
one you want to go.
And when I say vehicle, I'm not just talking about, everybody must get into a business. No, it might be a job.
Because I was coming to you.
No, it doesn't-
because every time people think financial
They think it's
freedom,
just
they
for
feel like
entrepreneurs.
it must be
Should I
entrepreneurs.
shock you?
They are
Should I
career
shock you?
people,
Can I
yeah.
shock you? Studies have shown that entrepreneurs don't do any better
Wow.
than employees. If you take the same energy that an entrepreneur puts into his job and an employee puts it in and is as mindful as the entrepreneur, the employee in some cases, probably most cases, will be doing better financially.
I read it on your page today.
Right.
You said an employee is actually an entrepreneur with
With one client, yes, that's what.
I just thought that was
so let me give you an
outstanding.
instance. So I remember I was talking to one of my coaching clients. She has a job, and I said, "Look, you have to think about how do I know that I'm adding value." I said, if a company employs you, and the news about that company gets out, about that employment gets out, and that company's share price in the stock market goes up because the news that you were employed is out, at that point, you can never be broke in your life.
Because you are.
Because at that point, it's not about just what you're bringing, you also have brought brand value to the organization. So for example, if I'm an employee, for example, and I want to say, in 5 years, I want to live in Banana Island, for example, right? Then what would I do? I would say, what kind of role would I have that would make me have that kind of position? Maybe it's 4 or 5 steps ahead of me. Beautiful. I'll go on LinkedIn. I would search for people in that role. I would search for my boss in that role. I would look for all the groups that is in, HBR, whatever. I would join all those LinkedIn groups. I would be active in those conversations. I would become an expert. I would start talking about the kind of thing that I want to achieve. I start talking about it. I'll start talking about, so if I'm a financial expert, I start talking about money. I start sharing information about it.
So that is thought leadership.
Yeah, exactly. I would build myself into a thought leader in that area. Because when people think about investing, people only talk about maybe you put some money aside, you invested in something. But the reality is this, right? One of the best investments you can make is in yourself, because the return on investment on yourself is crazy. I mean,
Astronomical.
think about somebody who invests in herself, becomes in 2 years, if you deliberately build anything, in 2 years you become a thought leader in that thing, in the way the world is structured now.
Yeah.
And when you become a thought leader in that thing, organizations might want that thing, and then they want you,
They'll fish you out.
right? Now, at that point, they would, there's somebody on this show that, I gave the same advice, she did it, organizations started to ask her to write for them. She got a job that is massive. So the thing is, so why I'm saying this is that most people assume that, financial freedom is an exclusive club for just entrepreneurs, and people like me tell people like, oh, you can't be rich working for somebody else. I say that's wrong. It depends on who you're working for. Steve Ballmer has been an employee all his life. He's in the top 10 richest men in the world, $118 billion valuation, an employee. So it's a function of, if you raise your value and somebody sees the value, then you can truly become that entrepreneur with one client. Because the difference between somebody who is an employee-minded person and an employee who is entrepreneur-minded is that the employee thinks it's a pawn in the system, the entrepreneur who is an employee sees themselves as value adding, and so they are being haunted by organizations.
So at the end of the day, it's about value.
There's about value. I mean, there's no conversation. Nobody gives you money because they like you.
Yeah, that's true.
You know.
You know what?
Wow.
On that note,
Outstanding.
let us take a quick break. We'll be right back. Let's think through. All right, if you just tuned in, we're having an amazing chat with Ezeiel Solesi on financial freedom, adopting and implementing a working strategy. You have heard it. You know, I love what you said. So please let us hear what you have to say. Messages are already coming in. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-8463. You can also tweet at us at PlusTvAfrica, one with the hashtag WasteShow. You know, I love what you said because, again, people like you, in your field, they've confused us.
Unfortunately,
Because for the longest of time, we feel like no, you cannot be financially free working for somebody else. I have seen my older sister and her hubby. They are proper 9-to-5ers. There's nothing more to tell them, and I have seen how
They've grown.
they have, like, when they are collecting, some of them are collecting in foreign currency right here in Nigeria. You know, so I'm not wondering, like, what exactly, how did this happen? You know. But they built over the years, that expertise. So now, whenever they go into any company, it is value that they are bringing to that company. So it means that there's truly a strategy. So, but how do we start to identify what strategy, identify the vehicle you want to use? And, you know, because again, some of us are multi-talented. Some of us have multiple things that we're good at. So how do we narrow it down to say, okay, this is the vehicle I think that would push me to that financial freedom, then stick to that 2-year plan to become an expert in that place, you know, and then probably that will now lead you to the financial freedom.
Okay, great. So back to choosing a vehicle. And so one of the things I always say is when you choose a vehicle, whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee, you need to have essentially one or two vehicles, which is your main stuff. Maybe an entrepreneur, your main business, whatever, or you're an employee, your main job. And then the other one would then be what you do with that money that you didn't use to buy sweets. Exactly, you know, that you said earlier. So what you do, because again, freedom is not so much, or being wealthy is not how much you make, it's how much you keep, you know, and what happens with how much you keep, you know. And we're not talking about just saving here, because have you ever heard the term savers are losers?
Yep.
I was going to say
Do
that.
you understand what that means?
No.
Okay, so let me explain it. Right now, most people have heard that term before, but they don't quite get it. And the easiest way I usually explain it is when I'm talking to people in an organization, and, you know, most people think about, say, the pension fund, right? Say maybe if I plan, how do I plan your retirement? So pension fund is good. Let's assume you have a job that allows you to put away 50,000 every month to your retirement account, for example, right? In a year, that would be 600,000, isn't it? Beautiful. Now, let's assume that your PFA or whatever it is says you get 10% guaranteed interest on that contribution. And let's assume you could do that for 20 years. You have 600,000 that are saved every year, 10% guaranteed interest, 20 years of savings, but you get something extraordinary. It's called compounding interest. You put all that figure together, by the end of 20 years, you have 32.2 million naira in your retirement savings. Amazing, isn't it? Most people won't pass an opportunity to have that kind of money, except for one small problem. Robert Kiyosaki says that there's 3 sides to every story. There's the side that you're told, there's the side that you believe, and then there's the truth. Now, the truth about that is that we're being sold tomorrow on today's excitement. It's exciting today to have that kind of money. How exciting will it be in 20 years? Now, the easiest way to understand how exciting will it be in 20 years is to go back to the past. So if we go back to like 1985, right? If my dad had 3,500, he could buy a brand new car. Of course, not the Maserati, but the 504, Peugeot, something.
Peugeot.
And by the way, 3,500, 1985, that wasn't back pocket change. Not the kind of money where you go and visit somebody and then they give you 3,500 as transport. That was some people's annual salary as civil servants. So if my dad had that kind of money, probably had a fantastic job or he saved pretty well. So his friend says, no, don't put that money in in a car. I mean, the car can spoil in 3 days. Why don't you just put it in a savings plan? You get 10% guaranteed interest every year.
Another
You
5
get
years.
20 years of savings. Do you know what's going to happen in 20 years? So he said, yes. Every year you put that money together. 20 years down the line, it gets 10% guaranteed interest, 20 years savings, compounded interest. The same factor that produced the 32 million. In 20 years, it'd have 224,600 by the same calculation. Now, that's a lot coming from 3.5, but he get that money in 2005. 2005, 224,600. Would I buy me a brand new car?
How many dollars is that? How many
Would I buy me a fairly used
He will
car?
not
No
even
way.
buy the complete 4 tires.
He won't even buy me a useless car.
Ah.
And that's why financial experts say, even though savings is a good habit, it's a very bad strategy. Because you're saving something that is losing value faster than it is
because
gaining
of
numbers.
the other things that are
So,
involved.
and you know, most of us have successfully taught our children how to save, but we haven't taught them what to do
With the
it.
saving,
Because financial
the
freedom
investment.
is not so. So, what I tell people that it is better to save up for an investment than to save up as an investment.
Yeah.
Save your money, put it into something. If the strategy is saving money, you'll get there and then you realize that it doesn't work. So on that note, if you're building a business or you have a job, it's also very smart to say, okay, when we make some money and we get some extra, where is that going to go to? You know what? Because you have to have where it's going to, so that that money can start to sort of work for you. If you've read Richest Man in Babylon, that's one of the basic principles that it teaches. But if you want to build massively, whether as an employer, as an entrepreneur, you have to understand the times. I'll give you an instance. 2022, 2023, businesses are going to hit billion-dollar revenue, billionaire revenue in this country simply because we have an election. But not just an election. It's not a re-election. It's an
a fresh
election
election.
where somebody wants to come in fresh. So the amount of money that would be spent over the next 2 years would be 3-4 times more. I was coming back I did a training in Abuja. I was coming back December 21st. I was, we're in the business lounge waiting for the flight. The flight was being delayed. So I eavesdropped on conversation with 2 people. This guy, eventually I joined the conversation. This guy had bought 2 private jets. 2 private jets. He's bought it. He's showing picture. He was going to take delivery of it the next week. And he said, as he bought these 2 private jets, he has already pre-listed to political candidates that are going to use it from now, from 2022 January to 2023 December. And by the time he collects his list, it's more than twice the amount that he bought the jet.
Wow.
Exactly. So think about the amount of money. So now, as a business, you want to ask,
where's the direction?
where is the money?
Strategic position.
Yeah, where's the money going? Where do I put
myself?
myself? And it doesn't really matter what business you're in, because every business you are in will be affected directly or indirectly. So the question is, what relationship should I be building now? What competence should I be building? I tell people that in Nigeria, for example, there's a massive wealth transfer every 8 years. Massive wealth transfer. And the people who benefit from this wealth transfer are either one of these 3 people. Either people that have a lot of money, right? 1, 2, or people who have a massive network, or people who are extremely, extremely good at what they do. Because if you're good at what they do, somebody who has great network will get a project that he cannot execute, and you
And
need
give
you.
it to you.
Wow.
Of course, if you have money, you can figure out whatever you want to do. So if you don't have a lot of money, and you don't really know a lot of people, then be good at what you do. Like, be laser sharp good at what you do, and let the rest of the world know that you're good at what you do. So you need to watch what's changing, how are things changing, how do I plug myself in, what industries are shifting. So for example, some people that are in certain industries need to build competence and get into some industry. For example, if you're a young person, if you work in a bank, build the kind of competence that you need in fintech and join. Because there's going to be more money in that space over the next couple of years, right? If you are smart, build some competence in being able to help people understand what's going to happen politically. You would enter into some rooms, So the point is, and here we're talking about, and the reason why I'm giving all these pointers is that a lot of us don't have the time to wait 20, 30 years to build financial freedom like some of our parents had to do. right? And unfortunately, even for those of us that are even trying to do that, the world is
It's
changing
fast.
very, very fast, you know. So I mean, just think about it now. School fees is like, in Jesus' name. You know, that's why we cannot have 5 children, right?
We cannot.
We can't, because if you want to put them in schools, the school fees.
And where do you take your university?
Do you understand? I mean, if you want them to go to good schools,
Yeah.
I mean,
Are you
because
telling me?
I mean, it's good schools is a financial freedom plan.
It's a plan.
Oh, I'm serious. Yes, I was in Transcorp one day. I was going to buy a ticket, and you know, some parents were arguing that that these schools in Abuja are too expensive. We'll send them to Inewi. Now, usually, I don't talk about what doesn't concern me. But the person that they were going to destroy his life was not in the room. So I had to become an advocate. I said, please, this thing doesn't concern me, but please, anything you do,
Don't do that.
don't do that. The woman said, why? I said, because in the next 15, 20 years, it wouldn't really matter what your children study, as it would matter who their classmates were. I said, it wouldn't really matter what they studied, but it would matter who their classmates were
The
5 years
network.
ago, 10 years ago. So please, don't. So good school, I mean, it's a good strategy. If you take a child, put him in Harvard or Yale, do you know that Harvard and Yale have a 100% record? There is nobody that went to Harvard or go to Yale that doesn't have a job. It's impossible. So imagine, I don't know if you went to, when you were in university, when we used to pray, God, let the labor market be a favor market in Jesus' name. Did you pray that prayer?
We did.
Exactly. If you went
No,
to
we were
Harvard,
still
that
praying.
prayer is
You cannot
destroyed.
pray. You can't pray
prayer
that
is
prayer.
out. You don't need that
Where's the
prayer.
praise?
So good school is a great. I mean, if you have children, putting them in great schools is a great strategy to set them up for life, right? Because they will have relationships, they'll have friends, they'll have, they will have the kind of people that would it's not just about them being able to access money, but it's also about how they would think.
Yeah.
So my parents really couldn't afford it, but they put me in a private school. And till date, I think it's the best thing that they did, because, when I was in school, I had to figure out how to pay, school fees sometimes, right? But the kind of money I was trying to figure out was 500,000 naira. I wasn't in a school where the school fees was 15K. So by the time I left school, I didn't have a problem raising money.
Because you were already used to.
Do you understand? I was used to it. I had people around me where I didn't have pocket money, whose pocket money was $1 million a month. And I realized that these people, they are not, it just makes you realize that these people they don't have two heads. They're normal people. Sometimes you're even smarter than them.
What school did you have?
So it gives you permission.
They have 1 million naira.
I don't
Get money.
I'm serious. I don't want to give them free advert now, right?
So we talked on clarity, long-term vehicle.
Yeah. And then we talked about understanding the times. What is
times.
happening right now and what will happen. So I'll give you an instance. So there's a report called Next Generation Nigeria, was chaired by Okonjo-Iweala, that talks about the fact that by 2050, Nigeria would have 500 million people. Now, if you read the World Bank report, it says 420 million people. Now, this is what it means. We have about 210 million people now. So it means that in 29 years, we'd have an additional 300 million people. But here's the thing. Let me give you an instance. We did an analysis based on that, because I work with a lot of real estate companies to show them that Nigeria is right now sitting on a 450 trillion naira real estate opportunity. Because the statistics says that by 2050, 75% of the population will be between 18 and 35. Right? Now, 75% of the population now is about between 18 and 35. Now, if we go by that number, in the next 14 years, an additional 150 million people would have been born in this country.
Yeah.
In the next 14 years, by 2034, 2035. Now, what that means now is that I don't know if we have been able to meet up with the housing needs, but we'll have an additional 150 million
Deficit.
people. Now, imagine if 5 people lived in an apartment. We're not even talking about land now, just an apartment. It means that we need to find 15 million, 5 people live in an apartment. How many? That's 30 million apartments, isn't it? Right? Let's assume that each of those apartments was 15 million naira, which you can't even find a 15 million apartment now. We're sitting on a 450 trillion naira opportunity.
Just in
real estate. Now, to be able to meet that need, we would need 32,500 real estate companies that make 12 billion a year. So if I see that that's where the money is going to,
How do I plug in?
what can I do for that industry? How can I serve that industry, right? If you look at the population and you look at the fact that, these people are going to be young and they're going to be sassy, they're going to be, what can you do?
Let me just introduce myself. Uwa is a developer.
Again, you don't necessarily have
Yeah,
to.
you have to.
Think about
Yes, there's a value
an
chain.
interior decorator.
That's my point.
Beautiful.
There's a value
You
chain.
are whatever it is that
Just
you are.
plug in.
Whatever. I mean, I have a lot of clients in real estate, but I don't develop. I don't. Just find a way and plug yourself.
Okay,
in.
quickly, the fifth one, because we have comments so that we can.
Okay, good. So the fifth one then is to when you determine all these 5 things, is to now design what your actual growth strategy for your
will now
business would be.
Okay.
Right? And the simplest definition of strategy essentially is a plan, right? And I always say that strategy is essentially the strategic objective of every business is to do one of these 3 things: find a way to make more money, save more money, or improve the quality of the product or service. What that means is this: anytime I do a training for an organization, I tell people, if you're an employee, you're in an organization, and you cannot pick up a pen and write down how your job role, what you do on a day-to-day basis, either helps the company make money, save money, or improve the quality of what they do, you're going to be fired soon. If you're an entrepreneur and every day of your life, you can't sit down at the end of your day and ask, what I have done today, does it help me make money, save money, or improve the quality of my product or service, I'm going to be fired. I'm going to be, again,
I'll
with
be
an
out of
employee,
business.
being fired is being out of business, right? So what does that mean? It means the plan can be different, but the question is, I've chosen where I want to play. How do I arrange myself in such a way that whatever it is that I'm doing, there's scalability? It means that we can make more money, right? We can scale, we can do better, we can do bigger, not just create. And when we talk about doing bigger, doing better, is how do I make myself relevant in the different life cycle of my clients? Just the same way when I work with an organization, I say, for example, if you're an accountant in that organization and you see that the organization is growing to become a billionaire organization, how do you improve your skills? Because at some point, the accountant should be somebody with a CFA, right? If you get to that point, if the business grows to that point, even if you're loyal, they'll have a decision to make.
They will have to
do we keep you?
Employ someone
Is
higher.
the cost of keeping you bigger than firing you and hiring somebody else? So if you think about all these businesses that are breaking down, these investment businesses, a lot of them, it's not like those businesses are scams. It's just that it's a mismatch. When a business starts, you hire who's available. As the business starts to grow, you need to switch to who is capable.
Yeah.
But most businesses don't.
They
And
use sentiments.
complex financing, 1 + 1 is 21, where 1 + 1 is 2 in elementary school. So as a business, as an employee, how am I upgrading myself? As a business, how am I making myself relevant for the different life cycle? I'll give you an instance. I know somebody, a friend of mine who does purpose discovery. So he does trainings for young people, purpose discovery. And I had a discussion with him one day. I said, and I'm grateful that he's taken it to heart. I said, the problem with your business model is that you meet people when they are broke. The people, you are discovering their purpose. When somebody needs to discover their purpose, they are broke.
They're already broke.
Do you understand? They either are young, they don't have money, or they don't have money at all.
Yeah.
So the question is, when they finish discovering themselves, what are you useful to them? Because I said, they'll finish discovering themselves with you.
They move on.
Then they'll come to me and pay me 5 million naira to coach them. Because when they finish discovering, they will come to me. So the question is, how do you make yourself relevant as they go? Because you don't want to create your own end. So many business people are creating what would then become the end of their business. Not because they're not doing a great job, because sometimes the very good job you're doing will kill you, right? Is that they're doing a good job at a level and they're not thinking about if this person moves to become
What
a
next?
billionaire business, what would
Will
they
I still
need?
be relevant
From me.
to the business?
What would they need? And can I fit myself into that space?
Okay, quickly, we've run out of time. Comments. You would even ask questions today.
No, he's very engaging and he's just answering, all the questions we have in our heart. And I think all the viewers, your questions are being answered as well. So we're fine. We're
Thank you.
good.
Thank you very much.
So we don't even have questions. We have
Comments.
We have comments, yeah.
So this one says financial freedom is practically possible, but it will only answer to a man's financial intelligence, which must go with planning and pursuit and delivery of business endeavor.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, I have, I don't know if this is 2 comments or just one for 1.2.
Oh, it's
Okay, ladies, I love your show. You were saying something earlier on this program concerning whether it is good for one to build a palatial house in the village without anyone living in it. Well, there is nothing wrong if one has the money to build skyscraper in his or her village. Because before a place became a major town or a big city, many people are running into or even dying of it before when it was once a bush or a village. Remember, east and west home is still the best. I'm an Igbo man. I love money because there is power and miracle in money.
I knew. Okay, so this one continues and says, more so, the place of financial discipline cannot be overemphasized because it will take a chain period of time to build up sustainable stamina towards achieving financial freedom.
So you want to quickly touch on that in like a minute?
Yeah, I mean, financial discipline is important. Very, very important. In fact, what I tell people is that when you figure out what your number is and when you start to make money, you need to have the capacity to freeze your life at a certain level. Because what happens is that a lot of us, as we start to make money, we want to quickly upgrade. There's nothing wrong with upgrading, but freeze your life at a certain level. I'll give you an instance. So you start making money, right? Do you have to buy a G-Wagon yet? Maybe not. Now, if you freeze your life at a certain level, you'd get to a point where you would have to buy a G-Wagon. And let me explain. When a business makes a lot of money and they don't want to pay so much in taxes, they have to expend the money. That's why banks buy a lot of big cars, because they rather give the money to the staff than give a large chunk of the money to the government, right? So, I mean, Grant Cardone, a billionaire in the US, says, I mean, why did he buy a jet? He realized that he needed to spend $50 million or else he would have to pay it to the IRS. So he bought a jet. So when people say,
you like it or not, the business will force you at some point to buy those luxuries.
So that's the thing. Freeze your life and keep working, and your business would provide all of those things for you, because you would have to do it because you're financially smart. But what most people do is that they change a little bit, they raise their level. They change a little bit, they raise their level, and it gives them very, very, very little opportunity to compound their wealth.
Absolutely. Hey,
so
we shall bring you back. We'll do quarterly check.
I think
Thank
so.
you.
No,
We have to.
him like
Thank you so much, Ezeiel. We had a fantastic conversation. See, all of us were quiet, taking notes. I hope you took your notes at home as well. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Manu. We had a fantastic conversation. Now, before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and more importantly, follow all our social media engagements. Like, share, comment, invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. Now, if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Financial planning and financial discipline is key to one's financial freedom. It's as simple as short. We'll see you guys live on Monday at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.